Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. Today, I'm speaking with Assemblyman Paul Kanitra from the 10th Legislative District about an issue that is very close to his heart, and that is Alzheimer's research and care. He's going to be discussing legislation that addresses just that, as well as tackling another issue near and dear to many New Jerseyans, and that is the cost of skyrocketing energy bills. The Assemblyman is standing by. First, though, we're going to be focusing on issues that impact New Jersey's infrastructure. U.S. Senators Andy Kim and Cory Booker, along with members of New Jersey's congressional delegation, are demanding the Trump administration unfreeze billions in federal funding for the Hudson Tunnel project and other transportation projects. The recent decision by the U.S. Transportation Secretary Duffy to halt $18 billion in approved funds has sparked outrage, with lawmakers calling it an attack on New Jerseyans who rely on public transit. We're joined now by Senator Andy Kim.
Thanks for having me.
Senator, can you explain why the Hudson Tunnel project is so critical for New Jerseyans and how the recent freeze on $18 billion in federal funding impacts the state?
I can think of no infrastructure project in the country right now more important than the Gateway Tunnel project when it comes to our economic security. I'm not just saying that from New Jersey's perspective, though. I will say, this is something that could add hundreds of thousands of new jobs, help with so many more families as they're commuting, be able to just really tremendously affect the betterment of New Jerseyans across the entire state. But I actually asked this exact question to Secretary Duffy, the transportation secretary. Now, first of all, I'll say he is actually a constituent of mine. He is a New Jersey resident. He knows the importance of this. And in his confirmation hearing to be the Secretary of Transportation, my first question to him was, what is the importance of the Gateway Tunnel project? And he said that it's a project of national importance. It's not just important for New York and New Jersey. If something were to happen to the Hudson Tunnel and trains are not able to get through, that is something that could be economically devastating to our entire country. We would see prices rise. We would see so many other challenges emerge. So this is a national priority, and it should be treated as such. And the Trump administration's willingness to use the Hudson Tunnel, the Gateway Tunnel project, as a means of political retribution and revenge, I think is one of the most reckless actions that I've seen from this administration.
You've been a vocal advocate for infrastructure improvements, including your support for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in 2021. What message are you sending to the Trump administration?
Well, I say stop playing politics with the lives and livelihoods of American people. I mean, the fact that they are trying to literally hurt the livelihoods, hurt our ability to have jobs. This is affecting Republican families in New Jersey, independents, Democratic families, like across the political spectrum. And I'll be honest with you, the American people, the people of New Jersey can't stand this. This is the kind of mob boss tactics that people can't stand. And it just shows the blatant partisanship and politicization and weaponization of infrastructure that we can't have as a country. We cannot have a situation where every 4 to 8 years, money gets doled out to the red states or blue states based off of the political whims. When we passed the infrastructure law, a lot of that funding went to Republican states where even the representatives voted against it. When we voted for the CHIPS and Science Act, again, a lot of that funding went to red states where their representatives voted against that. It's about making sure that our country as a whole is getting the support that it needs, and that should not be politicized. And honestly, I think this action by the Trump administration is going to backfire. I was just back in New Jersey, and I talked with a lot of people, and that was really just about the top thing that they raised with me. They were just like, what's going on with the Gateway Tunnel? Did they really stop the funding? And people across the political spectrum found it shocking and appalling, honestly. And I think it's playing a major role now in shaping the governor's race.
New Jersey's congressional delegation issued a joint statement calling the funding freeze a direct attack on residents who rely on public transportation. What specific consequences do you foresee for commuters, businesses and the regional economy if these funds remain frozen?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say not everyone in the New Jersey congressional delegation supported that letter. And I will just call out in particular Congressman Kane, who used his response to this as an attack against Democrats. I just think that that's, first of all, blatantly wrong. And I just think it's really shows just his lack of integrity when it comes to willing to stand up for New Jersey families. But look, this is something where, I even talked to some construction workers this past weekend, people whose livelihoods could be affected by this type of halt in infrastructure money. I mean, again, we're talking about projects that cannot just be put on hold. You cannot just put one of the largest construction projects in the Western Hemisphere on hold. Right now, we do have some runway, and hopefully we'll be able to keep working. But if this administration really tries to put the screws on, yes, that's going to be challenging and detrimental to our state. And frankly, if there is any type of pause that happens, it will just cost us more money. It is exceedingly difficult to stop and restart infrastructure projects. I heard that loud and clear from these construction workers this weekend that I talked to specifically about this. And again, they just don't like these political games affecting their livelihoods and the work that they're very proud to be able to do for our state.
Your delegation emphasized bipartisan efforts to secure this funding over the years. How do you plan to work across party lines to resolve the issue and ensure these infrastructure projects move forward?
Well, look, by virtue of the infrastructure bill and law that we passed, I mean, that was a bipartisan law. That is something that I've shown willingness to be able to engage in. But again, it really takes both directions to be able to work bipartisan. I'm still trying for that. But I will say it starts with the Republicans in New Jersey, in particular, our three Republican members of Congress from New Jersey, to be willing to put our state and the people of New Jersey ahead of Donald Trump and partisan politics. We should all be able to say, look, this is something, regardless of your political party, we know is not good for our state and frankly, not good for our country. And we need to hear that resoundingly from every member of Congress from New Jersey.
The joint statement mentioned the need to address rising healthcare costs alongside infrastructure challenges. How do you balance these priorities, and what solutions are you proposing to tackle both?
Well, look, there's absolutely room to be able to do all of that. And again, when they attack the Gateway Tunnel project on day one of the shutdown, it's very clear that it was, again, a political weapon that they are trying to use. Right now, instead of giving tax cuts to the billionaires and the biggest corporations like they did in the reconciliation bill, we could be able to fund healthcare at a time when so many people's costs are rising through the roof. We're estimating 4.5 million Americans could very well lose their healthcare. Over 20 million could see their costs double, if not triple. So what I'm hearing from people in New Jersey telling me, like Lucinda that talked to me and said that she's not sure if she's going to be able to keep her health care anymore if the costs go up dramatically, that should be a loud and clear message that we respond to. Maybe we don't give the $20 billion to Argentina. Maybe we don't do all the things that we're seeing this Trump administration doing that's clearly benefiting Elon Musk and the billionaires rather than the people that are struggling to pay their bills each and every month. So we should have a national budget that reflects our priorities. And one woman that I talked to at a diner down in Egg Harbor City, she said, I just want to remind Donald Trump and others that this is our money. This is the American people's money. This is not Donald Trump's personal bank account. This is something where we need to make sure that it's being spent in a way that benefits the American people.
Senator, for New Jerseyans watching, what can they do to understand and support efforts that would unfreeze this funding? And what's the next step for you and your colleagues in Congress to push back against the decision?
Well, what I hope the people of New Jersey do right now is reach out to their elected officials at every level of government, not just the federal, but certainly wanting to make sure that we show in a bipartisan way across the entire state that this is something that is so important to us. It should be a unifying moment for our state to stand up for this Gateway Tunnel project, show its importance. And look, I hope that the people of New Jersey, we have a chance to do something that few people in this country have a chance to do, which is to vote for a statewide governor's race in just a few weeks. And I, for one, can tell very clearly who's going to stand up for New Jersey and who's not.
Senator, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, New Jersey, want to choose how you live as you age? Tune into AARP New Jersey's new show, The Power of Us, the show that celebrates aging with dignity, purpose, and joy. From protecting yourself against fraud, to staying healthy and aging in place, to finding purpose through volunteering, we've got the tools, tips, and stories to help you thrive. Join us on ONNJ and discover the power of us.
Joining me now is Assemblyman Paul Kanitra from the 10th Legislative District, a Republican, to discuss Alzheimer's research and care, as well as tackling skyrocketing energy costs. Assemblyman, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Laura, great to be back with you.
Yeah. Well, let's first start with something that's very close to your heart. You've sponsored a bill aimed at really raising awareness when it comes to Alzheimer's, support services and funding in New Jersey. So can you talk a little bit about this and its profound personal connection you have?
Sure, I'd love to. And I've been involved with the Alzheimer's Association here in New Jersey for years, since I was councilman in Point Pleasant Beach, and then when I was mayor in Point Pleasant Beach, and I was essentially helping to cut the ribbon and help raise awareness about research and funding. And they came to me with a really novel idea about caregivers. And as you well know, I know your family was affected as well. The caregiver bears a big burden in the Alzheimer's equation. And in my family, my grandmother got Alzheimer's. She fought it for over a decade. And my grandparents raised me. When I was younger, I went to live with them in around sixth grade. And really, I'm where I'm at today because of my grandparents. And the half Italian in me, obviously wanted to come back home and help take care of them. So actually, that was the catalyst for me moving back to New Jersey, was when my grandmother got a little bit sicker, and to see what my grandfather was dealing with on a regular basis. So our bill, which is A4770, I named it after my grandmother. I'm really proud to have done that. It's called the Ruth Gilbert Alzheimer's Accessibility Act. And it would do exactly what we mentioned earlier. It would allow individuals in the early stages diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia and the caregivers to receive essentially the ability to use handicap parking privileges. I mean, it makes things that much easier when you have to run into doctor's offices, when you have to run into CVS and Walgreens and the pharmacies, and when you just have to do your daily chores. It's one less thing to worry about for those individuals. And if it can take a little burden off, we're certainly happy to do that.
Yeah, can you talk just a little bit about, beyond funding and awareness, how this really would improve access to diagnostic tools and that caregiver support? When you're dealing with a family member whose memory is slipping, you don't know, well, is this old age? Is this just, is this just part of the aging process? And so many people like you and me, I still have teenagers, actually young adults, and, I have parents who are aging with, some issues. So can you just talk a little bit about that? Because it can be overwhelming, because there's so many services, there's so many things that you can do, but where do you start? You don't know what you don't know. And then stepping in as that advocate can be a full-time job in and of itself.
You hit the nail on the head, and a lot of times you don't even know that you are an advocate yet. And look, at 46, sometimes things slip my mind, right?
Right.
But now imagine that you're seeing a loved one starting to have lapses in memory, lapses in, normal everyday processes. The first and most important component of that is figuring out exactly what you're dealing with, how advanced it is, and what your options are for you as well. I mean, there's a lot of medication. There's growing research in the field. They're understanding the root causes of it more and more every single day, and we're getting closer and closer, hopefully, to a long-term cure or a stop in the degradation of everything. But to do that too, you also have to be able to get to these appointments. You have to have the accessibility to be able to put yourself in a position to do that, and you have to have a little bit of the support along the way.
Yeah, and so many of the issues you see, whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, it mimics things. People could have a stroke, and well, that's just part of their processing now. Nothing is clear, and again, it becomes kind of a full-time job, even trying to get a diagnosis, let alone figure out what services and planning that you need out there.
Exactly. And the caregiver needs to understand what their role is in this process, right? They need to understand, what they can help with, what's realistic, what isn't realistic, what they need to actually go see a doctor if it reaches this certain stage or these thresholds. And that's part of the process, having them involved along the way. So there's realistic expectations on everyone, and it can be tackled with as much grace and dignity as humanly possible.
Right. Well, I think that's key, is helping the people who are affected keep their grace and dignity. It really, it's such a difficult thing. And, people are living longer and longer, and more families are affected by it. We could probably spend the entire show and then some on this topic, but I want to shift gears to another crisis hitting wallets here in New Jersey so hard, and that is people bracing for these utility bills that could spike 20-30% this fall, thanks to what some are saying. Well, there are overzealous green energy mandates. Can you talk a little bit about what we are starting to see? Like, I know my utilities have already gone up, and you're saying, whoa, just wait till November. It's going to get, but wait, there's more. It's going to get worse.
Of course, like everything, it's supply and demand, and the demand is continually growing. I mean, as we're more reliant on ChatGPT and AI and tech in general, that demand is going through the roof in ways that we couldn't even have really comprehended just a couple of years ago. And then we have to get to the root cause of the supply issues, right? Most people have already seen an increase in their utility bills. They recognize that. But I don't think that the average person in New Jersey realizes that another increase is already baked in. Come November 1st, the deferred payments from the last energy auction and the increase in utility costs is going to hit everybody. I have some real concerns about why that was deferred in an election season to a date when probably more than 50% will have already voted. We could go back and forth on that all day long. My real concerns are what got us here in the first place, right? And we didn't just get here overnight. In my opinion, and I'm on the Utilities and Energy Committee. I'm also on the Energy Task Force that the Republican caucus stood up. I've seen a decade of bad decisions when energy costs were really low, and you could kind of bury subsidies and helping out in big international corporations with donations and subsidies. Now the chickens are coming home to roost in a lot of ways. And quite frankly, I also got into the assembly because I was mayor of Point Pleasant Beach, and I saw the onslaught of wind turbines coming, and I saw the inefficiency with that and the cost associated with that. Wind energy, by many accounts, is about 10 times the cost of natural gas energy. And when you look at how many gas plants we've shut down, it's created this untenable situation where New Jersey, who used to be a net exporter of energy, is now a net importer of energy. And we don't have any great solutions that can turn this around immediately. And that's the crux of the problem, is how the heck do we fix it? Because New Jerseyans don't care about the bickering and the partisan politics going back and forth. They want low energy costs, and it's going to be tough to get them that.
Yeah, I mean, because you have short-term needs and longer-term solutions, right? Whether it be wind, solar, what have you, there's an argument to be made for these are great programs, but long-term, what actually is the cost? How long will it take for those things to kick in? And, again, when you're relying on the elements, do you have other things that are a little bit more traditional, a little bit more reliable? So as member of this Assembly Republican Energy Affordability Task Force, can you talk a little bit about some of the tangibles you're doing that you're trying to do in the here and now, because people, winter is coming and people aren't going to be able to afford their bills.
So we've had some great discussions with the nonpartisan Division of Rate Counsel, who is essentially the guy in state government who's supposed to objectively look at policies and direction of energy costs and utility costs, regardless of if it's coming from the governor or the speaker or me. And give a frank assessment of what we should be doing and how we can fix it. And I do think that he has indicated that kind of the ideological politics in all of this is not really helping very much, and that we do need to look at dollars and cents, what we're spending versus the amount of energy that we're getting back. But there's other very dangerous components of this as well, because New Jersey is part of the PJM interconnect, which is basically multiple states that are pooling energy together, and we're taking some energy and we're giving some energy. And Pennsylvania is one of the largest exporters of energy out there. And there has been comments from Governor Shapiro recently, as well as bills introduced in their legislature that potentially could Pennsylvania out of the PJM interconnect. Now imagine if one of the biggest exporters actually left. New Jersey would be experiencing brownouts and blackouts almost immediately. So as a result of that, myself and Kristen Marcel, a member of the state legislature in Pennsylvania, we're in the process of putting together a multi-state policy hearing that's going to bring together states from across the mid-Atlantic to discuss these issues. We're going to have a lot more to report soon. It's going to be held at the end of October, but I'm giving you the quick first inside take at it, because we're going to look at the policies that led us here, and we're going to look at what are the solutions to get us out of it.
So is what Pennsylvania doing? Are you saying what Pennsylvania is doing, because this is new and this is something that is just now being talked about? This is something that is a positive, and maybe we should follow their lead, or because again, this PJM interconnect, it's complicated. There are a lot of layers. Can you break it down in layman's terms for what you're looking out there that other states are doing that might be working?
If Pennsylvania left the PJM interconnect, there would be a lot of federal triggers that came into place, and there'd be monies that would need to be repaid and everything along those lines. But New Jersey would essentially lose one of its biggest partners sending energy into the state. And since we're importing 25 to 35% of our energy, it would be devastating for us. And then if other states see that as a possibility, like West Virginia and Ohio, they may leave as well, because you have to understand, we're coming to a tipping point here where we will not have enough energy for all of our needs. And the next step when you talk to the utilities is, well, we'll pay companies to not use as much energy, which is a wild solution in and of itself. What does that mean for artificial intelligence and our standing against foreign adversaries like China, and being able to make the advances that we need to in the Garden State and to be a pro-business friendly state? But what does it just mean for people trying to turn the lights on? If we aren't getting enough energy in here, things are going to go south very quickly. And I say that because it's going to take 4 or 5 years just to turn a gas plant on. And it's going to take 8 years to turn on a small modular nuclear reactor, and longer to turn on a full-scale nuclear reactor. These are, as I mentioned at the very beginning, problems that have come about as a result of, in my opinion, over a decade of really poor decisions, not going to get changed overnight.
All right, so final thoughts here. What is the outlook? I mean, if Pennsylvania is going to be pulling out of this, what is this? How messed up are we here in New Jersey?
Well, we're going there to talk to them and to show them, hey, look, we think we have some ideas to get out of this, and give us some time, and let's not be hasty in terms of an exit. And there are going to be a lot of costs if they actually attempt to do that. For us, it's Let's start working across the aisle. Let's not demonize natural gas anymore. Let's immediately turn back on the plants that still have the lines running underground that are going to be the quickest to get back on. Maybe you could get some of those back on in a couple of years. Let's get small modular nuclear reactors at the site of Oyster Creek, where they shut down the huge nuclear reactor and the whole state took a massive energy hit from that. And let's continue to look at solutions that are not ideological, because the average Garden State resident doesn't care where their power comes from. They care about what they're seeing in their energy bill. And technologies have already advanced so much in the US that we're not really contributing too much to greenhouse emissions anyway.
Assemblyman, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and to keep us up to date on the very latest developments. That is a very fluid situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Great being with you again.
And that'll do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.
Hey, New Jersey, want to choose how you live as you age? Tune into AARP New Jersey's new show, The Power of Us, the show that celebrates aging with dignity, purpose, and joy. From protecting yourself against fraud, to staying healthy and aging in place, to finding purpose through volunteering, we've got the tools, tips, and stories to help you thrive. Join us on ONNJ and discover the power of us.